The HS Vanguard drifted silently at the edge of the Taros system, its massive hull catching the light of the distant sun in brief, metallic glints. Commander Han Juwu stood at the observation deck, her weathered face reflecting in the reinforced glass as she gazed at the stars. 20 years of service had carved lines around her eyes, but they remained sharp and alert as they scanned the darkness beyond. The Vanguard was old. Once the pride of humanity's fleet, it now served as little more than a boundary marker, a forgotten sentinel watching over a system few remembered existed. Its corridors, once bustling with crew, now echoed with emptiness. Only Juwu and a team of 5 maintenance specialists remained aboard, along with Atlas, the ship's artificial intelligence. Another quiet day, Juwu murmured, tapping her fingers against the cool metal railing. "Indeed, Commander," Atlas replied, its voice emanating from hidden speakers. "Though I calculate we're due for excitement in approximately 3 years when the comet K249 passes through the system." Juwu smiled. Atlas had developed a dry sense of humor over the decades. Some would consider such evolution concerning, but out here, at the edge of nowhere, Juwu appreciated the company. A sudden alert tone shattered the moment of peace. A holographic display appeared before Juwu, showing a series of energy signatures entering the system. "Commander, we have detected multiple ships entering the system," reported Atlas, its voice shifting to a more formal tone. Juwu straightened her back, the comfort of routine falling away instantly. "Identify." "Sarlaxian vessels. Warships. They appear to be a conquest fleet." The name sent a chill down Juwu's spine. The Sarlaxians had been expanding aggressively through this sector over the past decade. Their technology was renowned, their military might unmatched. And now they had arrived at humanity's doorstep. "How many?" she asked, already moving toward the command center. 27 vessels detected. 3 dreadnoughts, 8 cruisers, 16 destroyers." Juwu quickened her pace, her boots echoing against the metal flooring. "Alert the crew. Send emergency transmission to Earth Command." Transmission sent. No immediate response. Of course not, Juwu thought bitterly. The Vanguard's position at the edge of human space meant communications took hours to reach Earth. By then, whatever was going to happen would have already happened. In the command center, Juwu found her small crew already at their stations. Park Minho, her first officer, looked up as she entered. "Orders, Commander," he asked, his young face betraying the concern he was trying to hide. "Maintain position. Power up sensors to maximum capacity. Let's see what they're doing here." The Sarlaxian fleet moved with precision, their ships forming a pattern that even Juwu, with her decades of experience, had to admire. Within hours, they had surrounded the lone human vessel, keeping just outside weapons range. "They're scanning us," reported Lee Sora, the ship's tactical officer. "Multiple frequencies." "Let them look," Juwu replied calmly. "We have nothing to hide." A transmission alert flashed across the main screen. Juwu nodded to Sora, who opened the channel. The image of a Sarlaxian appeared on screen. Their species resembled upright lizards with smooth, iridescent scales covering their bodies. This one wore ornate armor that marked him as a high-ranking commander. His eyes, vertical slits of burning orange, regarded the humans with undisguised contempt. "Human vessel," he said, his translator converting the hissing language into flat, emotionless standard. "I am Commander Drex of the Sarlaxian Empire's 17th Conquest Fleet. This system now belongs to the Sarlaxian Empire. Your outdated ship is an embarrassment. Move aside or be destroyed." Minho glanced at Juwu, who kept her face carefully neutral as she stepped forward. "Commander Drex, I am Commander Han Juwu of the Human Systems Alliance. This system is under human protection, according to the Galactic Charter of 2189. Your presence here without authorization constitutes a breach of interstellar law." Drex's mouth pulled back in what might have been a smile, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth. "Laws are written by the victors, human. The charter you speak of holds no weight with the Empire. We take what we desire, and we desire this system. I must ask you to withdraw your fleet." Ju continued, her voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. 27 warships against her single outdated vessel. The outcome of any conflict was a foregone conclusion. "Or what?" Drex laughed, the sound like stones being crushed. "Your vessel is centuries behind our technology. It belongs in a museum, not facing a conquest fleet. Will you fight us with that relic?" Juwu's jaw tightened. This relic has defended human interests for over 50 years, and now it will witness the end of those interests in this sector. This system has resources we require. You have 1 hour to depart, or we will remove you. This system is under human protection, Ju repeated firmly. We will not abandon it. Drex leaned closer to the screen, his scaled face contorting in what could only be described as amusement. Humans, always so stubborn, so convinced of your importance. You're barely evolved primates playing with technology you don't understand. Your species is unworthy of the stars. The transmission cut abruptly, leaving the command center in silence. Ju felt cold rage building inside her. She had encountered alien arrogance before, but the sheer contempt in Drex's voice struck a nerve. "Commander." Minho's voice was quiet. "Our orders." Ju turned to face her crew. Each face showed the same mixture of fear and determination. They knew the odds as well as she did. "Contact the other humans on the outpost on Taros IV," she ordered. "Tell them to activate emergency protocols and seek shelter." "And us?" Sora asked. Ju looked back at the screen, where the Sarlaxian fleet hung in space like predators circling their prey. "Atlas," she said quietly. "Power up all systems." "All systems, Commander," Atlas replied, an unusual note of surprise in its artificial voice. "All of them," Ju confirmed, "including those in Section 0. A collective gasp went through the command center. Section 0 housed the Vanguard's original weapons systems, technology that had been officially decommissioned decades ago, but never removed. "Those systems have been dormant for 40 years, Atlas warned. "There is no guarantee they will function as intended." "They'll work," Ju said with conviction. "This ship may be old, but she still has teeth, and I intend to show Commander Drex exactly what happens when you insult humanity." She turned to her crew, seeing uncertainty transform into resolve as her own determination spread through the command center. "Prepare for battle," she ordered. "Let's remind the galaxy why they used to fear the Vanguard." Deep beneath the Vanguard's command center, systems that had lain dormant for decades began to awaken. The lights in Section 0 flickered and then steadied, casting an eerie blue glow across machinery that few living humans had ever seen. Park Minho followed Commander Ju through the narrow maintenance shafts that led to the ship's core. His eyes widened as blast doors that had been sealed since before his birth opened with a groan of protest. "I thought these systems were just a story," he said, watching as ancient screens lit up one by one. "Something veterans made up to scare new recruits." Ju smiled as she approached the main control panel. "That's exactly what Earth Command wanted everyone to think." She placed her palm on a scanner, and a series of lights scanned her hand. "Commander Hanju, authorization code Phoenix, 70 Epsilon. Voice print and biometrics confirmed," Atlas responded, unlocking primary weapon controls. The wall before them split open, revealing a chamber filled with technology that looked nothing like the standard human military equipment Minho was familiar with. The components pulsed with an inner light, almost as if alive. "What is all this?" he asked, unable to hide his awe. "The real heart of the Vanguard," Ju explained, moving confidently among the strange machinery. "During the colony wars, humanity was losing badly. We needed an edge. Our scientists developed weapons systems based on technology we encountered. Alien tech," Ju nodded. "Reverse engineered from a crashed vessel found on Mars. The public never knew. After we won the war, Earth Command decided these systems were too dangerous, too unpredictable. They ordered them deactivated but never removed. The Vanguard became a patrol ship, then a boundary marker, and finally, she gestured around them, a forgotten relic. Throughout the ship, crew members reported with amazement as systems they never knew existed came online. In engineering, Kim Chun-ho watched in disbelief as power readings jumped to levels he'd only seen in textbooks. The reactor's operating at 200% of what should be possible, he reported over the comm. But somehow it's stable. Jiwoo's voice replied, "That's because this ship has 2 reactors. The second one's been idle all these years." In the weapons bay, Lee Sora stared at her console as new targeting systems appeared. "Commander, I'm seeing weapon options that aren't in any manual." "Use them," Jiwoo ordered. "Run full diagnostics." "Combat systems online," Edlas announced ship-wide. "Weapon capabilities at 89% efficiency, despite the years of inactivity." Jiwoo nodded with satisfaction. Better than she'd hoped. She left Minho to continue the activation sequence and made her way back toward the command center, walking slowly through the corridors she knew better than her own childhood home. She ran her hand along the walls of the ship that had been her home for 15 years, feeling the subtle vibration of power now flowing through systems long dormant. The Vanguard wasn't just old, it was legendary. During the colony wars, it had single-handedly broken through the Centaurid blockade. It had evacuated the entire colony of New Sol when their sun began to destabilize. Before being relegated to boundary duty, it had been the most feared human vessel in the galaxy. And now it would fight one more battle. Crew members she passed looked at her with new eyes, a mixture of fear and hope. They had all accepted this posting believing they were serving on an obsolete vessel, counting days until retirement. Now they were prepared for war against overwhelming odds. "The Sarlaxians are hailing us again," Atlas reported as Jiwoo entered the command center. She straightened her uniform and nodded. On screen, Drex's scaled face appeared, his orange eyes narrowed. Unlike before, his expression showed confusion and the first hints of concern. "Your vessel is powering weapons systems," he said, accusation in his tone. "Our sensors detect energy signatures we did not expect from a ship of your classification. Explain." "No explanation needed," Jiwoo replied calmly. "Your hour isn't up yet. We're simply preparing." Drex's mouth twisted. "This is futile. Our fleet is invincible. We have conquered 12 systems in half as many solar cycles. No single vessel has ever survived engagement with even a fraction of our current force. Surrender now, and we will allow your crew to depart in escape pods." Jiwoo smiled thinly. "You insulted my species, Drex. That was a mistake. Your primitive vessel against our fleet." Drex made a sound that might have been a laugh, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "You have courage, I'll grant you that." "Courage is a human trait," Jiwoo said, "as is remembering those who insult us." Drex's eyes flicked to something off-screen, likely sensor readings of the Vanguard's awakening systems. "You have 10 minutes to power down weapons and prepare for boarding, or we will open fire." The transmission ended abruptly. "He sounds worried," Sora observed from her station. "He should be," Jiwoo replied. "Atlas, what's our current status?" "All primary systems online. Shield generators at full capacity. Weapons charged. The quantum matrix is still calibrating but should be operational within 3 minutes." "Good." Jiwoo took her seat in the command chair and looked around at her small crew. "I know this isn't what any of you signed up for. We were supposed to be a quiet boundary marker, monitoring transit, and occasionally helping lost traders. Today, we're the only thing standing between the Sarlaxians and the inner colonies." "We're with you, Commander," Minho said, and the others nodded their agreement. Jiwoo smiled at their loyalty. "Atlas," she said, "remind me of our duty." The AI's voice resonated throughout the command center, a hint of what almost sounded like pride in its synthetic tones. To protect humanity's interests and honor against all threats. That's right, Ju whispered. Let's show them what this primitive vessel can do. She turned to her tactical officer. Sora, prepare to deploy countermeasures. Minho, plot an attack vector that brings us straight through the center of their formation. Through the center. Minho looked startled. That puts every enemy ship within firing range. Exactly, Ju replied. They expect us to run or surrender. They won't expect us to attack. The element of surprise is our greatest advantage. On the main screen, the Tarlaxian fleet shifted position, tightening their encirclement of the vanguard. Their sleek ships glinted in the light of the Taros sun, weapons ports visibly opening along their hulls. 2 minutes until their deadline, Atlas reported. Perfect timing, Ju said. By then, the quantum matrix will be online. She turned to her communications officer. Open a channel to all Sarlaxian vessels. When the channel opened, she stood, her posture straight and proud. This is Commander Han Ju of the HSS Vanguard. You have entered human territory without authorization. You have threatened human lives. You have insulted the honor of our species. She paused, letting her words hang in space. We will not surrender. We will not retreat. The Vanguard stands ready to defend what is ours. She signaled to cut the transmission. Shields to maximum, she ordered. All hands, brace for combat. Throughout the ancient warship, systems that had been silent for decades hummed with renewed purpose. The Vanguard, long forgotten by the very civilization it had once protected, prepared to remind the galaxy why it had once been feared. And at its heart, Commander Han Ju stood ready, her anger now transformed into icy determination. The Sarlaxians had made a critical error. They had dismissed humanity as weak. Soon, they would learn how costly that mistake would be. The Sarlaxian fleet deployed in attack formation, their 30 ships arranging themselves in a three-dimensional pattern that resembled a closing fist. Their energy shields activated simultaneously, creating a shimmering barrier around each vessel that distorted the stars behind them. In the Vanguard's command center, the atmosphere was tense but focused. Each crew member sat at their station, hands steady despite the overwhelming odds they faced. They're moving into positions for a coordinated strike, reported Minho, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Ju nodded, her expression calm. As expected, they'll try to disable us without destruction first. Sarlaxians love to capture enemy technology. The main screen showed the alien vessels advancing, their weapons ports glowing with energy. The lead destroyer, a sleek predatory craft, moved ahead of the formation. They're targeting our propulsion systems, Atlas warned, highlighting the enemy targeting patterns on the display. Predictable, Ju replied with a hint of a smile. They want to keep us from escaping. Execute tactical pattern Omega-3. Pattern Omega-3 confirmed, Atlas acknowledged. Warning, this maneuver exceeds standard safety parameters. Override safety protocols, Ju ordered. Execute now. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The Vanguard remained motionless as the Tarlaxian ships closed in. On the enemy flagship, Commander Drex watched with satisfaction as his fleet prepared to fire, certain of an easy victory. Then, without warning, the Vanguard's ancient engines roared to life with unexpected power. The massive warship shot forward at an acceleration that should have been impossible for a vessel of its size and age. The sudden movement caught the Tarlaxian fleet by surprise. The first volley of enemy weapons fire streaked through empty space where the Vanguard had been moments before. All shots missed, Sora announced, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. They didn't expect us to move like that. Ju leaned forward in her command chair. At last, what are you seeing in their shield configurations? Analysis complete, the AI responded. Sarlaxian shields operate on a modulating frequency pattern. However, there is a 0.3-second vulnerability when they shift between primary and secondary harmonics. Can we exploit that? Affirmative. Targeting solutions uploaded to weapons systems. Jiwoo's eyes narrowed as she watched the lead destroyer attempting to reorient toward the Vanguard's new position. Return fire. Target the lead destroyer's port shield generator. Target locked. Sora confirmed. Fire. The Vanguard's laser batteries unleashed a precise burst of energy. Unlike the broad, flashy weapons of the Sarlaxian fleet, these beams were tightly focused and seemingly unremarkable until they struck their target. The shots hit exactly as the destroyer's shields shifted frequencies, bypassing the defenses entirely. The destroyer's port shield generator exploded in a shower of sparks and debris. The alien vessel's defenses flickered and failed on one side, leaving it partially exposed. Direct hit, Sora exclaimed. Enemy vessel's port shields are down. A transmission cut through the comm system. Drex's voice tinged with disbelief. Impossible. How did you? Second volley, ordered Jiwoo, cutting off the Sarlaxian commander. The Vanguard fired again, this time targeting the destroyer's now exposed weapon systems and power core. The precisely calculated shots tore through the unshielded section of the vessel. For a moment, the destroyer listed to one side, internal explosions visible through the breach in its hull. Then, in a blinding flash, the ship's power core destabilized. The Sarlaxian destroyer erupted in a silent explosion, fragments of its hull spinning outward in a rapidly expanding cloud. The nearby alien vessels hurriedly adjusted their positions to avoid the debris. A stunned silence fell over the Sarlaxian fleet. In the space of 30 seconds, they had lost their first vessel to what they had dismissed as an obsolete relic. Jiwoo opened a channel to the entire enemy fleet. Your shields have a resonance frequency flaw, she transmitted to the stunned Sarlaxians. We noticed it immediately. Not bad for primitive technology, wouldn't you say? She closed the channel without waiting for a response and turned to her crew. Prepare for their counterattack. They'll come at us with everything now. As predicted, the Sarlaxian fleet regrouped quickly. Their formation changed, becoming more aggressive as additional weapons powered up across all vessels. Multiple targeting locks detected, Atlas warned. They are preparing a simultaneous attack from all vessels. Evasive pattern Delta, Jiwoo ordered. Sora, identify the next 3 most vulnerable targets. Already done, Commander, Sora replied, sending the targeting data to Jiwoo's display. Their cruisers appear to have stronger shields but slower frequency modulation. The Sarlaxian fleet opened fire, filling space with dazzling energy weapons. The Vanguard twisted and rolled, its movements defying its size and apparent age. Most of the enemy fire missed, but several shots connected with the human shields. The command center shook as the shields absorbed the impacts. Status displays flickered momentarily before stabilizing. Shields holding at 82%, reported Kim Chuno from the engineering station. The secondary reactor is compensating beautifully. Target the nearest cruiser, Jiwoo ordered. Same approach, wait for the frequency shift, then strike. The battle fell into a rhythm as the Vanguard danced through space, avoiding the worst of the Sarlaxian barrage while delivering precisely timed counterattacks. A second enemy vessel exploded, then a third, their destruction punctuating the void with brief, silent flashes of light. On his flagship, Drex watched in growing horror as his supposedly invincible fleet failed to destroy a single human vessel. Ships that had conquered entire systems were being picked off one by an opponent that shouldn't have posed any threat. How is this possible? He demanded of his tactical officer. Their weapons technology is supposed to be inferior. Unknown, Commander, the officer replied, his scales pale with stress. They seem to be exploiting a weakness in our shield systems that our own engineers never detected. Drex slammed his clawed hand against his command console. Adjust shield frequencies, random patterns. Back aboard the Vanguard, Atlas detected the change in enemy tactics. The Sarlaxians are attempting to counter our targeting solution by randomizing their shield frequencies. Jiwoo nodded. They learn quickly. but not quickly enough. Atlas, can you predict their new patterns? Working, the eye replied. After several seconds, new targeting solutions available. Efficiency reduced to 73%, but still viable. Good enough, Ju said. Minho, take us directly toward their flagship. Sora, continue targeting their support vessels. Toward the flagship, Minho questioned, even as he adjusted their course. That's their strongest vessel, and the last place they'll expect us to go, Ju replied. Besides, I want Drex to get a good close look at this primitive vessel before we're done. The Vanguard surged forward, weaving through the fragmented Sarlaxian formation with surprising agility. As it passed each enemy ship, it delivered precision strikes that crippled rather than destroyed, leaving disabled vessels in its wake. In the command center, despite the chaos of battle, a sense of confidence had replaced the earlier tension. The crew moved with purpose, their earlier fear transformed into focused determination. Their fleet is in disarray, Minho reported. They're trying to regroup, but can't establish a coherent formation. Jumu allowed herself a small smile. The Xarlaxians had entered this fight expecting an easy victory against an obsolete vessel. Instead, they were experiencing firsthand why the Vanguard had once been the most feared ship in human space. Keep pressing, she ordered. Don't give them time to adapt. As the battle continued, the stars themselves seemed to bear witness to an impossible sight. A single forgotten warship standing against an invading fleet, and winning. Despite their losses, the Xarlaxian fleet remained formidable. Drex had finally abandoned his assumptions about the human vessel and was now treating the Vanguard as a serious threat. His remaining ships pulled back, regrouping into a more defensive formation. They're surrounding us, Atlas reported as 17 Sarlaxian vessels arranged themselves in a sphere around the Vanguard. New energy signatures detected. They appear to be linking their shield systems. On the main screen, the alien ships glowed as energy coursed between them, creating a web-like pattern that connected the entire formation. Clever, Ju murmured. They're creating a compound shield. Our previous targeting solution will no longer be effective, Atlas confirmed. Shield penetration probability reduced to 12%. Minho looked up from his console, his expression grim. They've also positioned themselves to fire from all directions simultaneously. Even with our maneuverability, we can't dodge attacks from every angle. Ju nodded, her face showing no fear despite the dire situation. They learned quickly. I'll give them that. Commander, Sora said hesitantly, perhaps we should consider withdrawal. We've shown them we're not an easy target. We could retreat to the inner system and request reinforcements. Reinforcements won't arrive for days, Ju replied. By then, they'll have established control over the entire system. She rose from her command chair and walked slowly around the command center, looking each crew member in the eye. They had fought brilliantly, exceeding all expectations against overwhelming odds. But now they had reached the limit of conventional tactics. There is another option, she said quietly. The crew exchanged glances. They had all heard rumors about the Vanguard's classified systems, but most had dismissed them as exaggerations. Ju returned to her chair and placed her hand on the secure console built into its arm. Time to show them what we're really capable of. Atlas, unlock weapons vault Sigma 9. A red warning flashed across the main screen. Warning. Those systems were deemed too dangerous for regular deployment, Atlas stated. Earth Command prohibited their use under Resolution 47B following the Proxima incident. Override, Ju said firmly. Authorization Kim Tahoe 7726. The command center fell silent as the authorization code was processed. Kim Tahoe had been the legendary admiral who commanded Earth's forces during the colony wars. His authorization codes were supposed to have died with him 50 years ago. Authorization confirmed. Atlas finally responded. Unlocking Sigma 9 weapons vault. Standby for system integration. Deep within the ship, in sections that had been sealed and forgotten for half a century, heavy blast doors slid open. Compartments designed to withstand the vacuum of space revealed their contents, weapons that few humans even knew existed. Technicians who had been directed to these newly opened sections stared in awe at what they found. One of them, a young engineer named Kang Duri, activated her comm link with shaking hands. "Commander," she reported, "I don't even know how to describe what I'm looking at. These aren't conventional weapons. They're not conventional anything," Ju replied. "Prepare them for deployment." While the crew worked to bring the new systems online, the Xarlaxian fleet tightened their formation. Their linked shields pulsed with energy, growing stronger by the minute. "They're preparing to attack," Minho warned. "Energy buildup in all enemy vessels." Ju remained calm. Status of Sigma-9 systems. Integration at 87% and climbing, Atlas reported. Estimated completion in 30 seconds. "We may not have 30 seconds, Sora said tensely as the enemy weapons ports began to glow. "Atlas, deploy available Sigma-9 systems now," Ju ordered. "Target priority vessels first." Deployment commenced, the AI confirmed. "Warning: systems are not fully calibrated. Effects may be unpredictable." As the Xarlaxian fleet launched their coordinated attack, energy weapons firing from all directions simultaneously, the Vanguard's hull shifted. Panels that had appeared to be ordinary armor plating slid aside, revealing weapons unlike anything seen in modern space warfare. The first to deploy were quantum-tethered missiles, sleek projectiles that seemed to flicker in and out of existence as they launched. Rather than attempting to break through the enemy's compound shield, these weapons simply bypassed it entirely, phasing through the energy barrier as if it weren't there. The missiles reappeared inside the shield perimeter, directly alongside 5 Xarlaxian vessels. When they detonated, they released not explosive force, but quantum disruption fields that interfered with the ship's molecular cohesion. 2 destroyers and 3 support craft seemed to come apart at the seams, their hulls dissolving into clouds of component particles. Before the Xarlaxians could respond to this devastating attack, the Vanguard's main weapon powered up. Great panels along the ship's spine retracted, revealing a massive cannon that hummed with energy that distorted the space around it. "Gravity displacement cannon online," Atlas announced. "Target locked." "Fire," Ju ordered. The weapon discharged not a beam or projectile, but a focused wave of distorted space-time. When it reached the 3 Xarlaxian cruisers positioned at the head of their formation, space itself warped around them. The vessels were caught in suddenly compressed pockets of space-time, crushing them instantly as though they had been caught in an invisible fist. The remaining Xarlaxian ships broke formation, their compound shield collapsing as the ship's generating key nodes were destroyed. Panic spread through the enemy fleet as weapons they had never encountered before and couldn't defend against tore through their ranks. "What is this sorcery?" Drex's voice came across the comm, cracking with fear. His transmission showed his command center in chaos, officers rushing about as alarms blared. "These weapons violate the laws of physics." "No," Ju replied calmly as she watched another Xarlaxian ship implode under the influence of the gravity weapon. "They just operate according to physical principles you haven't discovered yet. This is technology you clearly don't understand. Perhaps you shouldn't have been so quick to judge." She turned to her tactical officer. "Sora, target their flagship. Let's end this." The Vanguard's weapons locked onto Drex's command vessel, which was frantically attempting to retreat from the battle. Before the gravity cannon could fire again, however, Atlas issued a warning. "Commander, power fluctuations detected in the Sigma-9 systems. The quantum reactor is becoming unstable." In engineering, Chunho's voice came over the comm, tense with concern. "The old systems are drawing too much power, Commander. They weren't designed to integrate with our current configuration. We need to power them down before they overload the main reactor." Chu considered the situation. The Xarlaxian fleet was in disarray. more than half their vessels destroyed or disabled. Their coordinated attack had failed, and now they were scrambling to retreat. They had learned the costly lesson she had intended to teach. "Power down Sigma-9 systems," she ordered. "Return to standard weapons." As the advanced weapons retracted back into the Vanguard's hull, the surviving Sarlaxian ships regrouped at a safe distance. Their once proud formation was now a ragged collection of damaged vessels. "They're hailing us," Minho reported. Jiwoo straightened her uniform. On screen, Drex appeared, his scales pale, his posture no longer proud and commanding. "Commander Jiwoo," he said, his voice subdued. "I request a ceasefire." Jiwoo allowed herself a small smile. "Are you surrendering, Commander Drex?" The Sarlaxian's vertical pupils narrowed. "The Sarlaxian Empire does not surrender. I am proposing a tactical withdrawal and diplomatic discussions regarding the status of this system." "In other words," Jiwoo replied, "you're retreating and want us to let you go." Drex didn't answer directly, his pride still evident despite his defeat. "Very well," Jiwoo said. "Withdraw your forces from this system immediately, and we will hold our fire. But remember this day, Commander. Remember what one primitive human vessel did to your Invincible fleet." The transmission ended, and the command center of the Vanguard erupted in cheers. Against impossible odds, they had defended their territory and their species' honor. The once mighty Sarlaxian fleet drifted in disarray, their formation shattered, their confidence broken. Of the 30 vessels that had entered the Taros system, only 5 remained operational, and even these were severely damaged. Escape pods drifted among the debris, carrying survivors from the destroyed ships. The battle had lasted less than an hour. What should have been a simple conquest had become a humiliating defeat at the hands of a single human warship, a vessel they had dismissed as obsolete and primitive. In the Vanguard's command center, the crew worked in quiet efficiency, monitoring the remaining enemy ships and checking their own systems. The advanced weapons had been powered down, but the cost of using them had been high. Power fluctuations still rippled through the ship, and several secondary systems had failed completely. "Status report," Jiwoo requested, her voice steady despite the exhaustion evident in her face. "Main reactor stabilizing," Junho reported from engineering. "Shields at 41%. Weapons systems functional but overheated. The Sigma-9 systems have been completely powered down and isolated. Casualties: 3 injured during the initial attack," Minho said. "No fatalities." Jiwoo nodded, relief visible in her eyes. It was a miracle they had survived, let alone one against such overwhelming odds. "The Sarlaxian flagship is hailing us again," Sor announced, her finger hovering over the comm controls. On screen, Jiwoo ordered, straightening in her chair. Drex appeared on the main display. The proud, contemptuous commander was gone, replaced by a defeated officer whose scales had lost their luster. Behind him, his command center was in shambles, with damaged equipment and injured crew visible. "Commander Han Jiwoo," he began, his voice hollow with disbelief. "Though the Sarlaxian Empire acknowledges your victory, we surrender." A stunned silence fell over the Vanguard's command center. Even Jiwoo seemed momentarily surprised. The Sarlaxians were known throughout the galaxy for fighting to the last ship rather than surrendering. Recovering quickly, Jiwoo rose from her chair. "These are my terms," she stated firmly. "You will formally apologize to humanity for your insults. You will acknowledge human territorial rights in this sector. And you will spread the word. Humanity is not to be underestimated." Drex's vertical pupils narrowed, and for a moment, it seemed he might refuse. Then his shoulders slumped. "It will be done," he replied, humbled. "A formal apology will be transmitted to your Earth Command. The Taros system will be marked in our charts as human territory. And the third condition." Jiwoo pressed. Drex looked directly at her, a flicker of his old pride returning. "The story of this battle will spread, Commander. Not by my choice, but because my surviving crew will tell others. Tales of defeat travel faster than those of victory. As long as the lesson is learned, Ju said with a nod. It is learned, Drex confirmed. The Xarlaxian Empire has not suffered such a defeat in generations. We underestimated you. It will not happen again. See that it doesn't, Ju replied. You may gather your escape pods and withdraw from this system. But remember, the Vanguard remains on watch. The transmission ended, and Ju turned to face her crew. One by one, they rose from their stations, exhaustion giving way to the slow realization of what they had accomplished. Minho was the first to smile. Then Sora began to laugh in disbelief. Soon the entire command center was filled with cheers and embraces as the tension of battle released into celebration. Jiwoo allowed herself a small smile as she watched them. These officers had been assigned to the Vanguard as a quiet post, a place to serve out their time until retirement. Now they had participated in what would surely become one of the most famous battles in recent human history. As the remaining Xarlaxian ships limped away, collecting escape pods as they went, Jiwoo moved to the observation deck. The stars stretched out before her, unchanged by the battle that had just taken place among them. Debris from destroyed vessels drifted slowly, the only evidence of what had transpired. A holographic projection of Atlas appeared beside her. The Xarlaxians have cleared the system boundaries, the AI reported. Their flagship has transmitted the formal apology as promised. Quite eloquent, actually. I've forwarded it to Earth Command along with our battle logs. Send a message to Earth Command, Jiwoo instructed. Tell them the Vanguard has successfully defended human interests in the Taros system. Request maintenance crews to help repair the damage we've sustained. Message sent. Atlas confirmed. Response expected in approximately 14 hours due to communication delay. Jiwoo nodded, her gaze still fixed on the stars. And what of us, Commander? Atlas asked, its voice softer than usual. The question surprised Jiwoo. The AI had never before asked about their future. What do you mean? After Earth Command learns of our use of the Sigma-9 systems, they may decommission the Vanguard permanently. Those weapons were sealed for a reason. Jiwoo considered this. The AI was right. The advanced weapons systems had been classified and sealed because Earth Command feared they were too powerful, too dangerous to exist. Using them might have saved the day, but it would also bring scrutiny and questions. Let them try, she finally said. Today we proved the Vanguard still has a purpose. One old ship stopped an invasion fleet. I think Earth Command will reconsider the value of keeping us operational. The AI seemed satisfied with this answer. Its holographic form flickered slightly, a gesture that almost resembled a nod. In the days that followed, repair crews worked tirelessly to restore the Vanguard to full functionality. Earth Command's response had been swift and supportive, praising Jiwoo's actions and authorizing immediate reinforcement of the Taros system. News of the battle spread quickly throughout the galaxy. Traders carried the story from system to system, how a single outdated human warship had defeated an entire Xarlaxian conquest fleet. With each retelling, the details grew more spectacular, but the core truth remained. The forgotten warship and its commander had become symbols of human ingenuity and determination. Species who had previously dismissed humanity as a minor power began to reconsider their positions. Diplomatic overtures from civilizations that had long ignored human space arrived at Earth Command. The balance of power in the sector shifted subtly but significantly. 3 months after the battle, the Vanguard remained at its post at the edge of the Taros system. Its hull bore the scars of battle, but these were now worn with pride. Additional human vessels had joined it, forming a proper defense fleet, but the old warship maintained its position at the vanguard of human space. In her quarters, Commander Jiwoo reviewed reports from the border. There were rumors of other expansionist powers testing boundaries, of new threats emerging from unexplored regions. The galaxy was changing, becoming more dangerous, but also more aware of humanity's strength. She smiled as she looked out her viewport at the stars. The Vanguard had been built for such times, and at the edge of human space, the HSS Vanguard continued its silent patrol, a reminder that appearances could be deceiving, and that some insults come with very high costs. The end.